What's up, guys? It's G here, and welcome back to the Grizzly Life podcast. In this episode, we're diving into a full-on fitness Q&A where Colton will be asking questions to Chase, covering common misconceptions, facts, and everything in between. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications. Now let's get into episode 16 of the Grizzly Life podcast.
Live? We're good? Cool. So I was asking Chase before we just started here, did you listen to last week's episodes?
Yes. So for context, it's Friday when we're recording this again. And then so Tuesday, Thursday are my days that I'm in Berlin in the morning. So I'll listen to it on the drive there. For the ones that run longer, I'll finish it once I'm working out. But generally speaking, I'll listen to it on the drive to work.
Yeah, I like to try to listen to it too. I like to hear how well I'm speaking, how many times I'm saying certain words or phrases. I also like to just see how the flow's going, how our conversation's going, and that kind of stuff. I think it's good for practice purposes. Kind of like if you're going to do a speech or, do it in the mirror, or review, rehearse as much as you can, that kind of stuff. But the reason I'm asking, similar to what we're doing today, we're just kind of rolling the tape. We're not doing really an intro. Obviously, Garrett's going to come back and do an intro for the episode, but we're just kind of going live, having a conversation. How do you like listening to that?
Kind of just depends on the episode. Some of them that I think it might just depend on the day that we recorded or what topic it is or whichever one we record first. Sometimes it sounds like it flows really well. Sometimes I should have slowed down in certain parts. I should have emphasized different parts of it. But kind of like you mentioned, there's certain words or phrases I know I repeat pretty often. I was like, I should probably, one I always pick up on myself saying is obviously. So now everyone listening is going to say, oh, now I'm going to see how many times Chase says obviously. I think it's whenever we start talking about say facts or stuff we find in books, but it's a book we've both read. So then I say obviously because I just assume everyone else has heard it by this point. But like you said, mostly it's the small phrases and everything along those lines, which parts I speak too fast through, stuff like that. So it might seem really nitpicky, but I think because it is ourselves, it's really easy to really get critical on it and say, how much better could this be? And really just for the quality of the show more than anything.
Yeah. The reason that I ask if you liked listening back to us just having a conversation and the clip rolling is I listen to some podcasts and I like, we come up here in the podcast studio in quotations and we're trying to start, 3, 2, 1, go live and just start having a conversation, which is fine. But I like trying to have a 5-minute conversation before we get going just to kind of get the juices flowing and just, make sure our brains are turned on and we're ready to go. So I don't mind, and, we're just going to kind of keep screwing around with how this all plays out, but I don't mind that. Have a conversation, Garrett randomly hits, go over there, he can cut it to where he wants to start it when we launch the pod, when he releases the episode. So I kind of like that. Start having a conversation, get her going. I don't know. I like listening to it too. I thought it was I thought it was funny. But
it makes it feel less like a drop off where, say a case where I said, welcome back everybody. And it's Garrett records the intro too. And then you feel also obligated to kind of knock out your required parts of the intro, if you will. And then once we knock all that out, it's okay, now where do we go and how do we flow it next? So I think, like you said, we'll find our groove of what makes the most sense in the long run and something we just end up settling into. But I haven't minded the last couple of episodes, especially this last 2 or 3 weeks or so. I think we're kind of finding what makes sense for us.
Yeah, if anybody listening to this episode can give us some feedback, shoot me or Chase a message, Snapchat, email us, whatever. Let us know what you guys think. If we can start our podcast off with 2, 3, 5-minute just a conversation, kind of get her going, and then kind of do our intro on who we are and what's going on and, the whole spiel of that. And then kind of get into our topic of the day, so we've got a 5 to 6, 7-minute, maybe it'll be shorter, but just a nice long kind of open to the episode. I don't know. If you guys can give us some feedback on that, that'd be great. Just kind of see what you think. We also want to think about the person who's never listened to an episode before. If this was their first one they were tuning into, are we going to lose attention? I mean, obviously somebody probably referred them to the episodes if they're going to be listening, so I don't know if that's the case, but any outside perspective on that would be good, I think, for us. So
Yeah, for sure.
with that being said, I believe today is episode 15.
16? Oh, yeah, Garrett, we on it.
Episode 16 of many. Sorry for that. It is Friday. We are recording for next week's Tuesday and Thursday episodes. So we are on episode 16 of many. We're going to continue releasing 2 a week like we've been. I think it's good to kind of say that out loud to hold ourselves accountable. And I think consistency is key. I think we have to continue working on that. And, I think we've done a good job thus far, but it'll maybe get harder, maybe get easier as the time goes on. Just kind of figuring out what we want to talk about and that kind of stuff and getting a groove like we've been talked about. But if this is your first time tuning in, this is the Grizzly Life Podcast. Go back and listen to episodes 1 through 4 to kind of learn a little bit about the history of us, what's happened from 2016 until this point to get us where we are now, learn more about the gym locations that we've got, the other businesses we've got, kind of how they started and all that kind of stuff. So episodes 1 through 4 is kind of where it all began. If this is your first time tuning in, my name's Colton Burt. I'm with Chase Mastercola and G in the producer chair, Garrett Burt, my brother. I am 26 years old. My name's Colton Burt. I own 6 fitness centers or fitness facilities. They are called Grizzly Fitness. One of those we are partners with at O-Town or Oshkosh with Jacob Colburn. We also own 4 pieces of real estate, 3 of which our gyms occupy, and 1 of which is kind of semi-vacant right now. We're just kind of holding on to it. We also own a company by the name of Priority Fitness. Priority Fitness is a fitness equipment service, repair, install company. We basically do everything gym equipment related over there. We work with YMCAs, Anytimes, residential customers, basically whoever's got a piece of gym equipment. They need it fixed, moved, extracted, installed, repaired, whatever they need, we can do it. So that's a little brief on us. But that is going to kind of wrap the intro there. So Chase and I are going to talk a little bit about some fitness stuff today. Just kind of have an open discussion again. I believe question number 1 that I have for Chase, I'm actually going to ask Chase some questions today. We've got all these gym members coming and going. I've dealt with a lot of the same stuff. I just want to kind of get Chase's point of view and then I'll chime in as well. But I want to talk about a lot of like the questions that we get from the, being like kind of the inside knowledge on the gym aspect, maybe being a gym manager, front desk, a personal trainer, whatever it is on the gym. I feel like we've got a lot of people who come in and they've got kind of the same beliefs or questions or thoughts and concerns about the gym. So I just kind of wanted to break some of those down and talk about it and get your perspective on some of that stuff. For example, I know when a lot of people come into the gym, one of the first things that I always hear is if like they've never been to the gym and they're getting like, maybe I'm giving them a tour, is I really want to start working out, but I just don't want to basically wake up tomorrow with all these muscles, right? Is what they're saying. They're like, I want to work out, but I don't want to be, ripped, I don't want to, and they just have this misconception of they're going to come to the gym and before they know it, they're just going to be like way too strong and they're going to have like traps or like these crazy muscles that they didn't want, or their arms going to be way, way bigger because they're lifting weights and stuff, right? Their arms are just going to be huge, or their legs or whatever. So I'm sure you get that question fairly often, or kind of that point of view from individuals, I guess. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, so specifically, I'd say for what you're describing, because obviously you get people all shapes, sizes, experience levels. Like some people are obviously coming in for membership and it's just, hey, I need a place to work out. Like otherwise I know, I'll say the misconceptions, or I know where I'm at currently in my fitness journey. But like you said, for that person that's signing up, that it's new to them, or they've been out of the game, say for a few years or decades for that matter, usually those are the questions of, hey, I just need to get stronger. I want, my joints to feel good, but I want to be nice and strong. I want my posture to look nice. But like you said, I don't want a bunch of big muscles. Like I'm not a bodybuilder by any means. Ultimately, there's not a lot of bodybuilders across all the thousands of members we do have. Some that might believe they are, some that are trying to aspire to that level. But for the most part, what I always tell people, especially when they say they want to be a bodybuilder, is I've been trying to put on muscle for 6-7 years now, and still, I don't look that crazy. So for the amount of work that we do and for what you're going to do on average, you're not going to just drastically, like you said, overnight have veins popping out of your arms and the super dry skin and huge muscles by any means. So what I would always say to those people is just by kind of going through, say, like a really standard time, say if you're coming 5 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever the case may be, and you're going through a 30-minute to 45, even on the higher side, 1 hour workout, you're doing cardio, you're kind of just hitting all the small things. Even if it's not super regimented or it's not super, say, structured out every day, again, overnight, you're not going to put on massive amounts of muscle, especially in that time, if you're not pushing yourself extremely hard or crazy, like assuming these people don't have a spotter. Those are always kind of how I try to express it. Maybe not to that degree, but I just explain that if they have a pretty basic routine, like you'll build strength like you want and it'll help you kind of feel more energized. But again, you're not going to just blow up overnight and look like a bodybuilder by any means.
Yeah, that's when somebody comes to me, and I feel like a lot of the people that I interact with, at least 5 years ago when I was doing this more often, I'd have a lot of females come and say, I really want to work out, but like I don't want these muscles on my neck, right? Like your traps. Or I want to work out, but I just don't want to like get too big or too muscular. And it's just like really not that physically possible. Like, and so I don't really go too crazy into a conversation. But the other thing I always say is, you're not just going to wake up tomorrow and be like, oh shit, I've been working out super hard and now I'm like this big muscly person. Like, it's going to take you like a long time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Well, especially just like, say your physical form, like say you lost 10, 15 pounds of fat, the muscle is so much smaller that like physically you're just going to look leaned out like you wanted to. I think it's just a misconception that like you're basically replace your current size with all muscle. Like,
yeah.
I don't think anyone or anybody gets that degree unless you're starting out, say, super lanky or super skinny to begin with. But
yeah.
It's not obviously it's a concern for most people, but it's not legitimate or genuine, I would say. I'd say in very rare cases that has anyone have the genetics even to get to that point, if you will.
I think their concern too is like whatever workout plan we're going to give them, like they don't want it to be like, I'm putting on all this muscle, right? Like, because I also, and this will feed right into our next question, they don't know a lot about like rep ranges and how the exercises work and doing them all together. So now they're concerned that we're going to like maybe put them on like the strength program, which is good for everybody, no matter what age you are. A strength program I feel like is always good. But they're concerned that maybe we're going to give them the wrong kind of workouts and that it's going to change what their body's going to look like, when in all reality, a lot of these people that come to us haven't worked out in some time and they just need to get back in the flow of things anyways. So my next question is kind of like the rep range aspect. I feel like these people who come to us, they're concerned we're going to put them on the wrong program or not have enough education there. Whether Cindy's doing rep ranges of 5 or 15, kind of what do you recommend? What's the difference? Or I don't need you to go too crazy into like making me a workout plan, but what do you use lower reps for versus higher reps for? And make sure that you explain, again, if Cindy were coming to me, there are times that she should be using lower reps as well, not just sets of 15, because that's for whatever you're going to say it is for, but you know what I mean? Kind of make sure you give a good breakdown on that as well.
So when you think of almost like, again, what a lot of people will come and say too is like, I want to be here for 2 hours. Like, yeah, I'm not at the gym obviously I work there, but I'm not working out for 2 hours at a time. But with those workouts, it's generally say some people that are doing, say, those strength sets, like the super low reps, like you mentioned. If you're doing like a set of 5 or a set of 3, your body just needs so much longer to recover to try to move that weight again. So that's when you're looking at like your not bodybuilders, powerlifting and bodybuilders, excuse me.
Good old bodybuilders.
I think that's how we have to, because it used to be power bodybuilders or something like that, or whatever. Besides the point. So that 5 rep range is kind of when you're taking longer rest, you're trying to build up strength. So that's where I mention a lot, like say the independent side of things, like if you can do that rep range, and again, almost regardless of program, I'll throw that in there, just for say keeping strong glutes, strong hamstrings, things along those lines, things that are really important in the long run. But for what a lot of people do, and if you probably asked any general gym goer, you're going to do a lot of sets too that are between like say 6 to 12, 8 to 12, even up to 15 for that matter. You'll be doing a lot of like say your toning or like a lot of your muscle building in that phase. So you'll see like, again, a bunch of competitive guys from say who are bodybuilders, they've done every set to 12. They do every set to 10, and they just keep moving the weight up and up and up. And then on the high side of things, if you're going anywhere from, say, 15 to 30, that's going to be a little bit more, say, muscular endurance. I still think, again, whether you're a bodybuilder or if you're just going for general fitness, I still think that rep range is really important too. Not saying 30 reps is going to be as effective for someone doing 12 reps. It really, again, some of that depends on genetics. Like there's a bunch of papers that are coming out now, like about rep range, what makes the most sense, how much is too much. Like I've seen people, instead of doing 3 sets of 20, they're like, well, I just did all 60 at once. Well, doing 60 reps is something like you could have actually pushed yourself. Like the marginal difference between the 60th and the 61st probably wasn't that hard or different versus, say, the effort you have to give from the 11th to the 12th. But otherwise, to kind of put a cap on that, I wouldn't go above 30 on anything. At that point, you're really not changing or challenging any of those systems for your body. Like you're not building up any more endurance, or you're not building up any more muscle tone, or you're not developing your strength any. So I would say never go above 30 reps on a set of anything you're doing for that matter, whether that's abs, arms, chest, whatever the case may be.
So don't do more than 30 push-ups in a row?
Yeah, I mean, the guys that do like 50, 60 in a row, it's impressive. Like it's kind of a testament to their endurance, but it's the same idea. Like how much marginally harder is the 49th one to the 50th one? It's like you're like chasing the pump at that rate, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about rep ranges, and like when I work out, if I'm doing my ideal workout routine, I train more like I wouldn't say bodybuilder because I'm not one, but I like to train kind of more for like the pump and just having a good workout and blood flow and that kind of stuff. Do it more for like the calorie burn than I do for like a marginal strength gain and that kind of stuff. But my ideal, when I and I'm sure this is kind of how we program too, but when we work out, we do our warm up, we get the blood flowing, that's great. Then I go into my heavy movement, while my body's fresh, while I'm not very tired. That's when I'll do like my heavy exercise. And I'm not, we're talking rep ranges of 5 or less compared to like 8 to 12, 8 to 15, 10 to 15. When we're talking that like 5 to 3, 1 to 5 rep range, we're doing that kind of early on in our workout routine because our body's fresh and we're ready to go and we've got the most energy to do so. I don't, we're not doing 5. I'm not training like a true powerlifter. I'm not doing like 3 or 5 exercises that are going to require me to do rep ranges of 3 to 5. I'm doing like 1, maybe a second exercise if I'm training to be really heavy and do that in that 1 to 3 to 5 rep range. So exercise number 1, for example, on chest day, after I warm up, might be my barbell bench press or my deadlift or my squat. And I'm going to do, I don't have to go too crazy into it, but I'm going to do a couple warm-up sets of bench press, and then I'm going to get into my working sets of 3 to 5 rep range. After that is kind of when we start doing that 6 to 12, 8 to 12, 10 to 15 rep range, supersetting some stuff, kind of working on some smaller muscle groups and that kind of stuff. So is there anything you want to kind of, for the people who are working out, not in our programming and that kind of stuff, when they're doing their exercises, it's good to do the heavy exercise first, get stronger, and then go out and get leaner or get more muscle endurance or whatever you want to do. So is there anything you want to add to that? I mean, I'm just kind of talking out loud, but.
Yeah, so within our program that we do, say with clients, there are almost like month-long or 3-week-long like little mesocycles within, say, the grander scheme of things. So we might be focusing on strength, so we might do more sets that are in like that 5 to 6 sort of range, but we'll still have sets that are in that 8 to 12, and we might jump up to like, say, 12 to 15 range, just because I don't think you should ever completely disregard any of those at any given point in time, kind of like you mentioned. Even if you're trying to pack on muscle, you should still focus on developing strength within the muscle. So let's say you're doing 6, 7, 8 exercises in a workout. I still think, even in your case, say most people are trying to build muscle tone, they should probably work within that range. But you can still have one exercise that is a little bit lower to kind of help build strength, have it be one of your core movements, if you will. And then also, whether it's at the end or at the start, whatever the case may be, you can throw in as well one of those sets that deals a little bit more with endurance. Like it's low risk of injury. You can get a lot of reps out of it. It's not super fatiguing. You can do an exercise like that as well. That's in that 15 to even 30 range if you so please. But otherwise, for the most part, I think a lot of people kind of fall in that 8 to 12 just because I always tell people in the workout, like that's where you're flipping that switch. Like you're like 30 seconds in and you stop using all like your quick burst energy and now you're switching over to, I always make an analogy to like a car, like you're switching over from the NOS and now you're going over to say gas, and that's like you got to go to electric or whatever the case may be. Like you're almost like a hybrid. So at that 30-second point, and you can see it when like they do cardio, like if we do a quick burst of cardio, 30 seconds, burning through it, giving her hell, and then again at around between 60 and 90, kind of depending on the person, you can see them take another dip to basically their aerobic energy. So again, in that 8 to 12 range, I think is when most people start to stall out, and then they're just like, okay, I'll just jump up and wait again if I can get all 12 reps really easily, and they don't necessarily push themselves in any of those like 15 reps or 20 reps for that matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the word or acronym that I was thinking of, it's ATP, right? Is that what it is? Oh, that's the stuff you burn through quick early on in your workouts, creatine, all that kind of stuff. But my other quick question, should I ever, I'm thinking about like my triceps or biceps, not shoulders as much because that's a bigger muscle, but I think biceps, triceps, maybe abs. Should I ever be doing like reps of 5 on like a tricep push down? Like, am I gonna?
I guess, yeah, you can finish the question there.
I mean, I was just thinking of it as we're talking, and maybe some people would get knowledge from that. When I do my triceps, I'm trying to burn them out. I'm not trying to do a 5 rep tricep, V-bar push down, right? So I'm just asking, like, what's your input on that?
If you were asking myself, I'd say, like, for example, you can do certain tricep movements and certain bicep movements, and you're not going to engage your back or you're not going to engage your chest. Like, your bicep is the primary mover, and there's secondary movers that are basically just close around it, the stabilizers. But when you're doing, say, your shoulder presses or your, say, like the example you used, like your rows, your pull downs, pull ups, whatever the case may be, your biceps and your triceps are very secondary muscles in all those, so they're still getting some work in. But if you're doing tricep extensions, you're doing bicep curls, like your chest and your back aren't doing anything in those movements. So I never necessarily do anything, say, below like that 6 to 8 range for, say, almost the ligaments isn't the right word, or your appendages, if you will, like your arms and your calves, stuff along those lines. I'm not doing super low rep ranges. All those muscles are super well resistant to volume. So you can do, say you only did 3 exercises for your chest in the week, you can probably do 4, 5, 6 different increments of arms throughout the week. So if you're doing like a chest day one day and then you're doing a pull day another day and then you repeat that twice, like your arms can take a lot of abuse and volume, if you will. So hence I will always do more of like that 8 to 12, 15, 20, save it for the end of the workout because again, they can take a lot more beating, if you will. And then they also recover a lot faster than, say, some of your bigger muscles. Like if you do a leg day, it's pretty brutal. I'll probably give my legs 2 days to recover. But if you do an arm day, like you can do almost like a 1 day, 2 day turnaround, your arms will be fresh again. So I don't necessarily go into those lower rep ranges with, say, my arms or my calves by any means.
Fair enough. Well, do we have another misconception or something that you'd like to think about when a member walks in and they thinking about signing up or anything along those lines? Kind of what we've already been talking about. Myths, gym myths.
I don't even know if it's necessarily a myth. I think it's just a pattern that some people fall into is they'll say like a circuit. So I've had a lot of people come in recently and they're like more of a retired population or retired crowd. So they've been to clubs that like existed in the 80s and the 90s, if you will, where you walked into a club, they had the full circuit, you went up and down and did 1 set on each and everything, and then it was good. That was your workout for the day. It was like 20, 30 minutes. Awesome. Boom, you're done. There's so much research and knowledge now that we have since then where I always tell people at the gym, like, don't get me wrong, you go up and down these 2 lines and like you're going to feel good. Like everything will get hit because there's a machine for every muscle group. That being said, I wouldn't do so just because you're going to have certain muscular imbalances. If you do it long enough, you might start affecting your posture the wrong way. So with that, you're just not distributing out, like, say, the workload evenly. So a big focus, say, like when we program for clients, is how do we make everything balanced, or how do we, say, correct your posture where we can round you back around. if you're kind of just going up and down the machines and doing the same weight and the same reps every time and thinking that'll maintain your health, it's no different than say like your brain's a muscle too, but if you never expose it to anything new and you do the same things all the time, like it'll atrophy, no different than your muscles. Like your muscles won't keep growing if you keep doing 20 pounds on the chest press every week. So you have to have some form of overload, like you have to keep progressing. You have to keep either increasing your weight or your reps or decreasing, like finding a way to increase the intensity essentially. So to refer back to obviously what the show is built around, how can you make your workout 1% better? Not every workout do you have to push yourself to the absolute limit or keep increasing the weight on everything, but over the long haul, so over like say 3 months or over like a trend line of things, you should see your weights increasing, like your volume of what you're doing increasing. So I think some people just get really stuck into, well, I've only ever done 5 pounds on this. Like, why would I ever go up to 10 pounds? Like, because you could get stronger.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my other kind of like questions was, the people who just come into the gym and they do a good job of rotating stuff, but they're just like, well, I do 50 pounds on the chest press, right? And that's just what I do. And I'm doing 3 sets of 10 because that's easy. Briefly, why should they be trying to push themselves and increase? If they just do 3 sets of 10, not that it's bad to come in and do 3 sets of 10 at the same weight and keep your muscles like working, but what is the purpose of trying to get stronger? Like, why should we be pushing ourselves? You know what I mean? Just a brief on that.
So best way I could probably explain it is your muscles have almost plastic responses and elastic responses. So elastic obviously being like it's more flexible. So when you start increasing your weights, your muscles can accommodate that for say the only 3 sets you might be doing or the 2 sets you might be doing. But eventually, no different than a rubber band, if you keep stretching it and working it and pushing at those limits, but it's the same limit, if you will. So kind of like the example we use, like we're always pushing 60 pounds, then eventually that response becomes plastic. Like you're just conditioned to do it. Same thing. Again, that applies outside the gym too. Like that could be just in life. Like if you get exposed to the same thing every day, eventually it's not like a new response where you have to adapt. You're just kind of conditioned to do so.
Right.
So same idea. You would stop growing and you would stop, say, having to have such a huge like metabolic response to it where it's like, oh no, I have to like burn more calories. I have to engage a bunch of energy to do this. Your body becomes more efficient. So it finds a way to recruit less muscle. Like it's not going to tear up as much muscle as it did before. It's not going to demand as much of your body. So kind of always trying to find a way to, again, whether that's more reps, if it's more weight, whatever the case may be, finding ways to recruit more of that over like a continuous basis, if you will.
Sure. Any other topics you'd like to bring up and chat about, or do you want to wrap us up there?
I don't know. I mean, I could, if like it's because it's like so broad and you hear so many questions, like there's a lot of things you could really go into. I guess probably my one thing I would say is a lot of people always kind of go into, say they are looking for a trainer, right? Like again, it's completely green, like everything's completely new. And they're saying like, I think I just need to like try it for a week to see like, and then I would know exactly what I'm doing. Like coming from someone who's seen it, like my sister's done powerlifting side of things. I've seen a lot more, say, athletics, as has she, and I've done a lot more, say, bodybuilding sides of things where I feel very knowledgeable on what movements to do and rep ranges and nutrition and that side of things. It's not anything where, like, I had just basically secondhand knowledge, right? Like from what I knew from her, what I've seen online, or what I've done myself, what I've heard from coaches. And even since then, like, since getting certified and going through all sorts of different programs and finding all sorts of different resources and papers out there, you only know. It's kind of like that, like fallacy, or like the thing where they say you don't know how little you know until you find out how much is out there, then so on and so forth. But trying to say that you'll like figure it all out in a week is kind of like you could get a good idea of or a good grasp of things in a week, but you kind of only scratch the surface where you might start to fall into some of these habits of only doing the same 5 or 6 machines because you only have 5 or 6 you like. You'll only stay at the same weight just because you don't want to hurt yourself or progress yourself, which that's fine within reason. But I think over the long haul of things, especially say fitness, like stay kind of an open ear to all the things that are coming up that are new. It's an ever evolving industry. And I say this to our coaches all the time too, like stay kind of tuned in to the new things that are coming out, because there's papers that come out where stuff that we've talked about today, there might only be 8 papers on it because fitness as we kind of know it today has only been around for, like, say 40 years, like the stuff Arnold did and all those guys did in the 60s and 70s. Don't do that. It's probably very bad for your body in long haul unless you're just a genetic phenomenon that can do all that much damage to your body. But I think there's just a lot of people that think you can take it all in a week. You'll know exactly what you're doing, and you're kind of good and ready to roll for like the rest of your life for a fitness routine. And I think there's just a lot more of that. So for the questions you do have, say either do your research or consult someone with kind of a breadth of knowledge, whether that's myself or Colton, or if you find the sources yourself that you like. But again, feel free, shoot me any questions you have regarding fitness for that matter. I'd like to consider myself with a pretty broad range of knowledge, but I'm not going to soapbox on that one for too long at all. But
yeah, I'm not going to say I'm an expert in one area, but I've been doing it myself for a while. So being able to give anybody else insight and that kind of stuff. But I think what you're trying to say too is just be like always open to like new information, always learning, always improving, be a sponge, take everything in and do what you want with it type thing. That's kind of how I like to be too with like all this reading and stuff that we're doing. On a personal level is we might not need to know all this stuff, or we might not be able to use it, similar to like when you go to school and you have to learn all this crazy algebra and things that we're not going to necessarily always use in the real life. Just be willing to take in everything you can about fitness if that's something you want to do, or be willing to take it in and just kind of do what you want with it. So we appreciate you guys joining us today. It was kind of just a little, I don't know, not an FAQ or anything, but just kind of like things that we see often in the gym, kind of practicing this conversation back and forth. So that was good. I asked Chase questions today, and Chase got to talk a little bit more than normal, so I enjoyed that. It was episode 16 today, so we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to follow me on Snapchat, colton.burt, COLTON, BURT. Instagram and Facebook is coltonburt19. Our email is marketing@fitnessgrizzly.com, and our website is thegrizzlylife.com. I will throw it over to Chase so he can throw his socials out there, but otherwise we will see you guys Thursday.
if you're looking for me on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, everything across those lines, it's just myself, ChaseMastricola. And like we mentioned earlier, send us your feedback. Let us know how you're enjoying the episodes, any topics you'd like us to dive into deeper. And otherwise, we'll see you guys on Thursday.